Hey, I was having a brief chat exchange, whatever, on Twitter X, whatever it's called, recently. And I thought it would be a good example actually for people who are maybe struggling a little bit with when we talk about behaviour, and I'm going to talk about children in schools because that's what this conversation was about. And the comment was, and this isn't about talking about that person or shaming that person. If that's what someone wants to think, stop watching the video now. This is to use it as an example to help people. So the example was we have one child in the class who has issues, and we make accommodations for that child. And we have another child who doesn't have any issues, and that child gets sanctioned or, punished, or rewards taken away from them, which is a punishment. And when I saw something like that, and I was, I'm sure there are people who might think that there are children who just don't have issues. And this child is acting out and all of that. It's really important that we just don't make assumptions about the children that we work with or anybody. If a child is acting out, looking for attention, they're classic signs of a child who is struggling with something somewhere in their little lives. No child is just acting out for attention just to annoy everybody, or just to distract people, or to have a laugh, or, because they think it's funny, even though they might laugh. Because inside, that child is suffering. That child is suffering. And we need to get our heads around that, because look, we all grew up in this kind of behaviourist world. As children, we learned, there was good and bad behaviour. That needs to go out the window. Those concepts need to go in the bin. If you haven't already put them in the bin, please do it now. There is no such thing as good and bad behaviour. That's someone else putting a judgment on what a child is doing, basically. We're labelling it good and bad behaviour. That doesn't mean it's good and bad behaviour. What it means is, in olden times, right? People went, that's appropriate, that's inappropriate, that's acceptable, that's not acceptable, that's good, that's bad. We need to leave that stuff behind, because we're moving on now, and we know about child development, and we understand how children behave when they're suffering, when they're stressed, when they're masking, when they've had trauma in their lives. Class clowning, running away, all those kind of things, they're classic signs. What child wants to get given out to every single day for distracting others? What child is going to feel good about themselves? Think about it. If we get rid of good and bad behaviour, we start to see somebody is doing things, and it's showing us what's going on the inside, okay? I think this is, if we can take one thing away from this little video, is that underneath any behaviour, any action that a human being does is a feeling. And instead of looking at labelling what they're doing as bad, right, which is just no, throw it out the window. It's useless. It's not helpful to us or to the children that we work with. Instead of labelling it as bad, be curious. Oh my goodness. If this child is acting this way, how are they feeling on the inside? If this is what they're showing us on the outside, what's going on for them on the inside? And what's it like for that child if they're expressing their pain in a way that we've been trained to think is bad behaviour? They're expressing their pain to adults around them, looking for care, looking for help, in a way that's all they know how to do it. That's the only way they know. And instead of being met with kindness and curiosity and empathy and compassion, they're being met with punishments and being told they're bad. They already feel bad. We don't need to tell them they're bad. So I'm asking any of you who are parenting children, are working with children, and are watching this, just please do the work to get rid of those ideas in our heads that there's good and bad behaviour. And I know it can take time. It must have been 15 years ago when someone said to me, there's no such thing as a bad child. Or a bold child, that's what it was. And I was like, what? No such thing as a bold child, because how many of us grew up thinking we are the bold child? We've learned that. So obviously if we think it has to exist. So it can take a long time to dismantle that kind of thinking because it involves us and our lives and our childhood. But it's so worth it, because once we start to take away that kind of thinking, that bias that's in our minds, that lens that we're looking through, all we'll ever see is good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. We'll never actually learn how to come to meet each other properly, and particularly the children in our care.